A commotion between his parents jolted 10-year-old Timmy awake in the next room. His cries only fueled Mark's anger further. "That's it. He's screaming like a banshee again. Don't worry, I'll quiet him down in a jiffy. He'll be as silent as a mouse." Grabbing the walls for support, Mark stumbled into the kid's bedroom. Sarah, terrified, tried to intervene, but Mark shoved her aside as usual. In a panic, Sarah ran to the hallway, pounding on the neighbors' doors, tearfully pleading for help to protect her and her son from her violent husband. Several concerned neighbors quickly responded to her cries. It took a lot of effort to restrain the enraged man until the police arrived. Thankfully, the child remained unharmed. Mark was taken to a detox center later that evening. Then came Sarah's biggest fear. The decision to file for divorce from Mark sparked a confrontation with her parents. "We never thought our daughter would marry such a deadbeat," lamented John Miller, seated at the table while his doting wife catered to his every need. Why wasn't Mark good enough for her? He provided for the family. He brought in a good salary. What more could a wife ask for? "Everything else is the wife's responsibility," he grumbled. Sarah sat across from her stubborn father, her voice quiet. "Exactly," agreed Mary, nodding in agreement. She left her husband over some unimportant squabble and didn't think about the child, leaving Timmy without his own father. Goodness, what will the neighbors think? "Mom, Dad, how can you defend Mark? He hit your daughter," Sarah interjected. John Miller and Mary Miller exchanged a glance and, to Sarah's surprise, burst into laughter. "Oh, honey, talking about hitting him. I don't see any bruises or signs of abuse on you," John exclaimed. "We know how you women are. You probably nagged him until he lost his temper." Sarah was stunned by her father's words, glancing at her mother for support. But Mary remained silent, merely nodding submissively, as expected of a traditional housewife. "Exactly, dear. It's all a big fuss. If I'd threatened to leave your father every time he yelled, where would we be?" Mary chimed in. "And you, daughter, don't even think about divorcing over a yell, or you'll end up alone. Our family's reputation can't handle such a scandal," John added firmly. Sarah realized she couldn't change her parents' minds. Despite their insistence on her returning to her husband, she managed to convince them to take her and Timmy in, at least for a while. A few days later, Sarah left Timmy with her grandmother and went to Mark's apartment alone, assuming he was at work. She intended to collect the rest of her son's winter clothes. As she entered the building, Sarah unexpectedly encountered Mark exiting the elevator. Well, where have you been hiding? Out partying with some guys while Timmy needs his diaper changed?" Mark sneered, blocking Sarah's path and forcefully pulling her behind him. "Don't worry, we'll go home and I'll give you a proper welcome back," he said menacingly. Sarah let out a shriek and yanked her hand free from her husband's grasp. "Mark, I was at my parents' place, and I'm not going home, okay? I filed for divorce. Timmy will be staying with me, just so you know." "I don't want him around. Take him," Mark retorted carelessly. Sarah swallowed a lump in her throat. "Fine. Then let's settle the matter of spousal support. Should we discuss it here or in court?" "Are you threatening me?" David snapped back. Sarah didn't anticipate her husband's next move. In a flash, he punched the metal mailboxes beside her head with his fist. "You won't see a dime from me, got it? Forget about spousal support. And if you try and take me to court, you'll regret it. I'll make sure of that," David threatened before storming off. Angela stood frozen for a moment, her mind reeling from David's cruelty and selfishness. 3 years wasted on a man like that. Once, she'd held on to hope he might change. Now, her resolve to divorce him was stronger than ever. A week later, Angela was still living with her parents, enduring their constant lectures. Thankfully, Mary Miller took care of Timmy, while Angela looked for part-time work to lessen her dependence on her father. One day, Angela went for an interview at a local grocery store, hoping to land an evening cashier position. Maybe some financial independence would help. She was surprised to see Andrew, her childhood sweetheart, as the store manager. Their reunion brought a smile to both their faces. "Angela, how about we catch up tonight at a cafe? We have so much catching up to do." "It's been ages," Andrew suggested warmly. "Oh, Andy, not tonight. I have a lot going on at home, and I know Mom's probably exhausted from watching Timmy all day," Angela replied, shuffling her papers. "Ah, I see. So, how's life treating you? Husband, kids?" Andrew inquired. Angela hesitated. "Just Timmy. I actually just filed for divorce," she admitted. "It's a long story, Andy. Maybe another time." From then on, Angela and Andrew started seeing each other more often. She felt a flicker of happiness, a spark she hadn't felt in a long time. Then, unexpectedly, David showed up again. Angela was caught off guard when she bumped into him in the stairwell. He was tearful, suddenly remorseful, begging for forgiveness and a chance to save their family. Angela was speechless. It was jarring to see David, usually so cold and calculating, in such a vulnerable state. "Honey, I see things clearly now. Please forgive me, if you can. I love you and Timmy more than anything. Don't let's break up the family. Should I get down on one knee?" he pleaded. Angela reached down to help him up from the floor. "David, get a grip. We're finalizing the divorce any day now. And if I remember correctly, you weren't exactly fighting it before, were you?" she asked, her arms crossed in disapproval. "That was crazy talk. Forget the divorce. It's all my mom's fault. She filled my head with nonsense," David exclaimed. "What does Patricia Miller have to do with any of this?" Angela furrowed her brow in confusion. "She kept whispering that Timmy isn't mine, saying, 'Wake up, son. Your wife's been hiding another man's child on you.' How could I have believed such garbage?" David sighed deeply, pacing back and forth before collapsing dramatically at her feet. "I love you, honey, both of you. Please, don't leave. I promise I'll never hurt you again. I'll do anything," he cried, tears welling in his eyes. "And if you leave me, I have nothing to live for. I'll end it all, Angela, you know I will," he threatened dramatically. "David, get up. What will the neighbors think?" Angela urged, barely managing to usher him out of the building. She reluctantly agreed to consider giving their marriage another chance. Back in the apartment, Angela was met by her parents, who hadn't bothered to hide the fact they'd been eavesdropping through the peephole. "See how much he loves you, Angela. How desperate he is to save your family. He even knelt down for you. And here you are, thinking about leaving him," John Miller lamented from the doorway. "Absolutely. It's all his mother's fault, putting those crazy ideas in his head," Mary Miller agreed. "But he'll be as gentle as a lamb now, dear. You'll see. He'll love his son and treat you like royalty." "That's enough, Angela. You've been through enough with the insults. Forget the job application and go back to your husband. You've worn out your welcome here," John hinted. "Your father's giving you good advice, honeybunch, and David loves you. Don't let him do something rash out of grief. You wouldn't want that burden on your conscience, honey," Mary added. Angela spent the rest of the day lost in thought. Her phone buzzed nonstop with calls from David, but she just couldn't answer. Soon, persistent calls started coming from her ex-mother-in-law. Their relationship had never been close, so Angela was surprised to hear an unusually warm and pleading tone from Patricia Miller. "Honey, you can't go through with this divorce. Splitting up is easy, but keeping a family together, that's the real challenge," Patricia Miller urged, her voice laced with concern. "And what about your son? Have you thought about how he'll grow up without a father in the picture? David's a wreck, can't eat, sleep, or work. He's completely exhausted," she continued, genuinely worried. The older woman's voice trembled, and she started to cry. "Oh, my heart aches. This whole situation is just wrong. I'm worried David might do something drastic. Patricia Miller sobbed. Patricia Miller, please, don't cry. I had no idea David was so upset. Angela's voice trailed off, feeling overwhelmed. He's terribly worried. Patricia Miller choked out between sobs. I'm so sorry, dear. Please forgive me, Patricia Miller. But I need some time to clear my head. Angela replied, trying to sort through her emotions. Most importantly, come home, honey bunch. I promise to be nicer to you from now on. I'll help with Timmy, and I'll treat you like my own daughter, Patricia Miller pleaded. After the call with her ex-mother-in-law, Angela found herself conflicted. David and his mother seemed genuinely remorseful, and her parents kept pushing for reconciliation. Angela made a decision. For the sake of her young son, she was willing to give up the job at the store and return to being a housewife, giving her marriage another chance. However, it hurt her to know that meant letting go of Andrew. Andrew was disappointed by Angela's choice, but he understood. In a desperate attempt to stay connected, he suggested they remain friends. A month passed. To Angela's surprise, both her husband and ex-mother-in-law had indeed changed significantly. Patricia Miller kept her word, often looking after Timmy and helping with chores, giving Angela some much-needed rest. David no longer yelled, treating his wife with respect and kindness. He even quit drinking, found a part-time job, and dedicated his free time to spending quality moments with their son. As the end of the month approached, David surprised his wife. Honey, I almost forgot. The couple were getting ready in the hallway for a family outing to Central Park, when David suddenly stopped and reached into his bag. He pulled out an envelope and handed it to Angela. Here, this is for you, for the household, for our son. Use it as you see fit. You're my wife, and I'm here to support you, David declared proudly. Then, he leaned over to their son in the stroller, adjusting his cap. Hey buddy, ready to build some sandcastles in the sandbox and play with some new cars? Daddy will get you some next week, he said with a smile. Angela could hardly believe the change in her husband. For the first time, she felt like they were a truly happy and united family. Angela held on to hope for their family's future. However, their newfound peace was shattered by tragedy. Angela's father, John Miller, suffered a fatal heart attack. Devastated, Angela and her mother mourned him while arranging the funeral. Returning home one evening, Angela found David in the kitchen with a bottle of vodka. David, why are you drinking? It's too soon after Dad, Angela said, tears welling in her eyes. David remained silent, his expression distant, lost in thought. David, there's something we need to talk about, Angela began, wiping her tears. Mom and I figured out the funeral costs, and I was hoping you could contribute some. After all, your father wasn't a stranger to you. Forget the money, David suddenly yelled, slamming his glass down. Angela was startled by his anger. Your father was a con artist. He tricked me, David accused, his voice laced with resentment. What do you mean, tricked you? David, what are you talking about? Angela asked, confused. What am I talking about? Your father promised me an apartment if I reconciled with you and played the happy husband, David revealed, bitterness clear in his voice. So that's why you convinced me to drop the divorce. For an apartment? Angela cried, tears streaming down her face. Not just any apartment, a brand new one. Did you really think I came crawling back for your pretty eyes? David retorted coldly. And your mom? You blamed her for turning you against me and Timmy, Angela countered. My mom, she was part of it. They cooked up this whole scheme to get you to drop the divorce, David admitted shamelessly. We were supposed to get divorced, split the apartment, and sell our share. But your father's death screwed everything up. Now it's all gone, poof, just like that, David explained bitterly. Suddenly, David stood up, grabbing Angela's shoulders roughly as she sobbed. "And because of him, I wasted so much money on you, and that kid. You know what? I don't care about you or your family," David yelled, shoving her away before storming out, leaving her drowning in grief. Despite the shocking revelation, Angela couldn't blame her late father for scheming with David. Deep down, she knew John Miller just wanted what he thought was best for her. That day, Angela packed her bags and moved back in with her mother, taking Timmy with her. She immediately filed for divorce from David. After some time to grieve, Angela decided to return to her part-time job at the store. She had a son to support. More importantly, she yearned to see Andrew. A spark of hope flickered within her. Maybe he still felt something for her, and maybe she could return those feelings. Reaching Andrew, however, proved difficult. Despite calling him all week, she received no response. Determined, she went to their old workplace, only to find a new manager behind the counter. Noticing a familiar face, Angela approached Jennifer, a former colleague, and inquired about Andrew. Jennifer's response left Angela speechless. "What? You haven't heard? Andrew was in a car accident 2 weeks ago. He didn't make it." "I'm so sorry, Angela. He was so young, with his whole life ahead of him. He never even had the chance to start a family, though he always dreamed of it," Jennifer explained with sympathy. The world seemed to blur as Angela processed the news. She felt lightheaded and fainted, collapsing to the floor. A year had passed. Angela was officially divorced from David, severing all ties with him and his manipulative mother. Fearful of his past threats, she didn't pursue alimony. Living with her mother, Mary Miller, Angela found solace and support. Mary helped raise Timmy while Angela worked her part-time job at the store. Any trace of David's manipulative brother, once a fleeting memory, had vanished completely. Andrew's absence, however, remained a constant ache. Regret gnawed at Angela for returning to her abusive ex-husband, blinded by a misplaced hope in his phony remorse. Her heart ached with the unspoken what-ifs. What if she'd followed her intuition and confessed her feelings to Andrew? Maybe, just maybe, they could have built a happy family together. Despite the pain, Angela clung to the strength she found in her son and her mother's unwavering love. She vowed to rebuild her life, brick by hopeful brick, for herself and Timmy. The future, though uncertain, held the promise of a fresh start, and Angela, with a newfound resilience, was ready to face it. I hope you enjoyed this story. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more awesome stories in the future. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey, and we'll see you next video.